Hi, everybody, and welcome back. My name is Rebecca Green. I'm here with Melissa Ellis today, and we are going to answer all your questions about mediation in the state of Missouri and Kansas. Please keep in mind, if you found us somewhere else in the country, there may be some very different processes, and at the same time, hopefully you can learn something today. So thank you so much for being here, Melissa.
Absolutely.
You've got a long list of credentials. Share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure.
I'm going to dive in and pick your brain about everything today.
All right. I'm Melissa Ellis. I own Sapphire Divorce Solutions. I also own Sapphire Wealth Planning. So you'll find me on two different websites. I'm a certified financial planner. I have a master's in personal financial planning, and I'm also a certified divorce financial analyst. And that's really the reason why Rebecca reached out to me, was to talk about what happens when you get divorced.
Yeah, because your life's not over. I say that every single video I have a chance. It's not over. It's not the end. And yet this is a really hard part that you want as much information as you can get. So congratulations to you for doing your research and being willing to even watch the beginning of this video. My goal today, and we talked about it a little bit before, is just to dive in and help people take away a little bit of the fear about what's on the other side of mediation. So for somebody starting at the very beginning, can you explain what mediation in divorce is?
Okay. So mediation is really sitting down with someone that is neutral, the mediator, to help you work through whatever the issues are in your divorce, whether it's your parenting plan, if it's the finances, or really all of that. And we just start at the very beginning and just go through and work through step by step until we come up with a plan for your divorce. Then we can involve an attorney to write the documents, because I can't write the documents in the state. It has to be done by an attorney. But I have attorneys that will work with us also as a neutral. They're there to prepare documents that help you get divorced. At that point, we can say, if you want to go talk to an attorney, I have a list of attorneys to refer you to if you want them to look at it in your interest. That way you have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. But a lot of times when people go through a mediation process with me, because I'm working through all the finances with them, they know everything that went into that plan. I feel like I understand this, because they're the ones that actually crafted it. It's not me telling them what they need to do. It's more of a process of them deciding what they would like to do. And if it makes financial sense, then we can move forward and we can make that happen.
I love that. So prior to a mediation with you, what type of documents would I be collecting to be able to have this meeting?
So you'd want to collect all the statements for bank accounts, credit card accounts, your 401k statements, most recent pay stubs, previous tax returns, the deed to your house, because that information will be needed. Even if one of you is going to keep the house, you still need a copy of the deed or the information from it. A list of what the important assets that you own, cars, if you own boats, if you own a vacation property, timeshare. What are the things that have come up? And sometimes just toys, ATVs and things like that, that people all of a sudden go, oh, well, what are we going to do with that?
Golf cart, whatever.
Whatever it is, it's important, or you feel like it's of sentimental value, you want it addressed in the divorce, then we just need a list of that.
Okay, so I've hired you, we've collected all of our documents, and it's the day of mediation. When I walk in, what happens?
What I'll have prepared is a list of the assets and liabilities of the marriage. And so we just make sure that we've accounted for everything. And then we have a conversation. Have you already made a decision about the house? A lot of times they haven't. And they're like, can I afford to keep the house? Okay, we can look at that and we can figure that out if one or the other can afford it. A lot of times people have already have something in mind, what they think they would like to have happen.
Yes.
And a lot of times, if they're not comfortable talking in front of each other, because sometimes they're not, we can actually separate and just have a one-to-one conversation and find out what is it that you want or need, and find out what the other person wants or needs. And so a lot of times you look at what you want might not be what your spouse wants.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, good. This works out really well because you didn't want that anyway, and they did. So we figure that out and then just come up with what's an equitable settlement. And we try to then find, okay, what are the hard pieces? And then a lot of times though, once we get to the end, it just, and people are just like, oh, this is what we should do.
Right.
It's just obvious when you look at it on paper.
So one of the things that I think I experience is people find one item. There's one thing that's where they're going to dig their heels in, right? So I either want the house, or I'm not giving him my retirement, or whatever the case may be there. As someone who mediates these conversations, what's your advice to someone, let's say the person watching this video is a little more reasonable. They're doing the research and trying to find information. How do I go about that? Should I let the other person know I'm not budging on that, or do I leave it to the professional? How do I navigate that situation?
You can actually do it either way.
Okay.
But a lot of times if you leave it to the professional, I can bring up that subject and knowing that it's a touchy subject and say it's a canoe. You both want the canoe. You know, it's kind of an odd object, but it could be anything. We'll look at that and go, okay, number one, how much time are we going to spend talking about this? And what is it costing you to have this conversation? So that's the number one. And then what's the value of the object that we're talking about? Okay, what would it cost to go buy another one? Would there be an advantage? Is there a reason why this one is so important? And sometimes people then all of a sudden just realize, no, there's really not any reason for that one. I just want a canoe or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, maybe either you get a new one or it's like, fine, let's flip a coin. If it's really not of huge monetary value and it's just more of a, I just want it, then in the end it's like, okay, what's the real worth of it, and should we even spend time talking about it? It was a kayak, a couple of kayaks, and some other things that were, water toys and stuff for their lake house. In the end, we're like, okay, what's all of that worth? And he said, more than what I'm paying you right now. Or no, less than what I'm paying you right now. So it's like, okay, well then the two of you are just going to figure that out. Because yeah, I think so. I think we just figured it out.
Okay.
It was just not important. And it's just like, let's just put that aside because it's really not important. And sometimes that comes to light real quick. What's truly important, what isn't. Yeah.
And I know you've already touched on this a little bit, but sometimes in a divorce, it's scary to sit next to somebody who it got really bad with. So have you seen that a few times where you sit down in a room and because you're the neutral party, tensions do melt away a little bit?
I see that a lot. And I'm amazed at the number of times where I've seen the couple be very kind and gracious to the other one, sitting around this table and talking about how we're dividing up their marriage. And they're so kind. And I think, why are they getting divorced? They're so sweet to each other. But I think that's a good barometer for what their relationship will be like post-divorce.
Right.
Because when you get into talking about the money, the divorce, that's usually where the tension comes up. They might not be able to have that conversation at home together. They might be able to talk about, the plates and silverware and everything else, but they can't really talk about the big stuff. But sitting here, they can have that conversation because it's a safe space.
Yes.
And that's really the key, as having that safe space. There's somebody else that's listening to the conversation or helping lead the conversation. And then it comes down to where there's like, no, I want you to be okay and I want to be okay. And then they can see where they're both financially going to be okay. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be living under a bridge on a cardboard box or some variation of that. And like, you're not going to have as much as what you have when you're together, but you will have enough to move forward. And that's the key.
Yes. And I know you yourself are not a therapist, but you work with and are professionally involved with lots of therapists. I always like to highlight how stressful this process can be for people, right? The loss and the grief. If somebody's watching this and they just feel like, man, a lot of things that are being said and thrown at my way, I think I should understand them, but I just don't. Is that normal?
Absolutely. Not everybody's going to understand everything. In fact, a lot of times there is one person in the marriage that has handled the finances and the other one just let them handle it because that was their thing and they handled other things. And so then when they get divorced, they're like, oh no. So a lot of times I can just sit down with them and just say, okay, this is what you have. This is what you owe. This is how this has all come about. And they're like, oh, okay. There's all of a sudden understand, or they can ask that question they think is a stupid question, but there is no stupid question. They don't know the difference between 401k and say their savings account. But I can help break that down and just make it very simple and tell them why they want some of both and how that's going to be advantageous down the road.
Right.
So, and there are some cases where I have advocated for one party, and a lot of times they've either are going through mediation with a different mediator, or maybe they are in a trial situation, or any other process that I'm not already involved in. A lot of times we can just sit down and go through, okay, this is what's being offered. And what does this look like for you going forward? Because they don't always get that information. They can see what it looks like today, but what will that look like 5 years down the road?
Okay, so explain that a little bit more, because I think people go, well, today we've got $300,000, you get 150, I get 150, we're good.
So, well, number one, is there a need for spousal maintenance in that divorce? And a lot of times attorneys will just assume, well, you have a job, so you probably don't need spousal maintenance. But what they don't realize is the other spouse makes quite a bit more, and you won't be able to live the same level of lifestyle. If there are children involved, the state really wants you to have somewhat a level income type or same type of living situation. You don't want to have one in the trailer park and one in the mansion, right?
Right.
The kids are going to go, I don't want to go to the trailer park and see mom. Don't make me go where there's not an Xbox, whatever it is. Right. And so they want to make it so that it's comfortable for everybody. So that's where a lot of times we need to look at spousal maintenance. Is it required or needed? It's never quite required, but is it truly needed? Child support's a whole other thing. Right. That is a requirement.
Right.
And the state's going to make sure kids are taken care of. But sometimes you need an advocate to step up and say, no, look, this person's earning power is not the same and never will be. Can we do something to correct that? You know, can we help you get a degree or some type of work that you'll be able to replace that income? And if you've been staying at home taking care of the kids for a long time, you might not really even know what your skills are. And we can help uncover that. I have other professionals I've referred people to help them figure out what's a career that they could go into that they would enjoy.
Those are great resources. And that's something I always try to tell people is you're not alone in the process unless you choose to be. And it can be scary to write a check up front to help someone, especially, at least what I found in my world is it seems like the person who typically does the finances and has done the bookkeeping and bought the house, that person feels like they can kind of handle it. And a lot of times they don't even want to involve a financial planner or someone for the other spouse. But just to keep stereotypes alive, if the stay-at-home mom has someone like you sitting across the table from her and helping her feel more confident, a lot of times the dad that's been working for 15, 20 years ends up feeling better on the other side too.
Right.
Because everybody has a working knowledge of what this is going to shake out to be.
Yeah. And I have to say, in most cases, probably 99% of the cases, the person who wants that divorce, especially if they're the ones that are making more money, they want their spouse to be okay.
Yes.
And I've seen where they have offered more than what was really required to make the other person whole or comfortable. And they're like, I know I'm going to make more money, but they need this, or I want to pay for school, or I want to pay for something, or I want to buy them a new car because the car they've been driving is the one we've had for 10 years and mine's new. So there are things that they want to do to make sure that the other one is able to, live a comfortable lifestyle.
So one last question that I have for you. If you could wave a magic wand, where at in the divorce process do you think it's the most beneficial for people to talk with you?
The very beginning.
Okay.
The first thought when it crosses your mind, whether you think you're going to get a divorce or that you want to ask for that divorce, that's the time to sit down and go, okay, what does this look like? Am I going to be okay financially? And to have that knowledge up front.
Yes.
And also to know maybe some things that you need before you have the conversation. So you need the documents that we talked about, all the different statements, so that you know what it is that you have. You don't want to be surprised later and go, oh, I left the house and I didn't get, this past tax returns.
Right.
Then you have to dig for information. You don't want to do that. But if you know up front what that might look like, then it's not a big surprise when you sit down at the mediation table after you've told your spouse, I'm ready to get a divorce. If you don't know where you are financially, I did have one woman who sat here. It was one of those cases where she was in a different process and her attorney said, I think you can help her understand her finances. And so we sat down and looked at it, and they had a lot of income. They didn't have very much saved.
Wow.
And they were in their early 60s. And all of a sudden she realized, oh, we really don't have anything. They had a beautiful house, but it was leveraged. So there was debt against it. There wasn't a lot of liquid assets in the end.
Right.
And then she said to me, she goes, had I known this, I never would have asked for a divorce. And I'm like, oh dear. Wow. Maybe counseling would have been helpful.
Okay,
And can you go back and put that back in the box after you've already said, I want a divorce? No, it's hard to put that back in the box and go, let's go to counseling now. That's the other thing I always ask people when they call and say, okay, I'm thinking about getting a divorce, or I think I'm headed that way. I'll ask them if they've gone to counseling. And if they haven't, I will give them referrals to some really good therapists that I know that might be able to fix the relationship, because there's no sense in going through a divorce that you don't really need if you can repair the relationship. And actually, I've had 8 couples that have decided over the years that we're not going to get a divorce after all. And they either became financial planning clients, but they didn't get a divorce.
That's incredible.
And a lot of it was they just didn't understand the finances. One of them didn't, and thought that something was occurring that wasn't occurring. And they either thought the spouse was hiding money. It's like, nope, it's all right here. It costs that much for us to live.
I mean, taking out any extramarital affairs or abuse with alcoholism or something like that, I think probably money is the biggest issue in a divorce and in a marriage. Yeah. You've got somebody in your corner that can really sit down and, as an educator, explain to everybody what the situation is. Right. It can make a huge difference in people's lives. So, if somebody needs to reach out to you either for mediation or financial planning, what does that look like?
They can go to either one of my websites, whether it's sapphiredivorcesolutions.com or sapphirewealthplanning.com. And there's a button at the top of the page that says schedule a consultation. The initial consultation is free, and we can do that by phone, Zoom, or in person.